Welcome back to the book discussion on Living in Truth, Gandhian Paradigm. In today's lecture, we are talking about the moral revolution, Gandhi's moral revolution. This book is written by Ramin Jahamiglo and Pooja Sharma, published by Rupa Publications. Now, we have been talking about Gandhi's moral revolution, and in arguing, here we are talking about how Gandhi's moral revolution was quite similar to Socrates, and it was based on the ideas of inner voice posed by Socrates. In arguing for the ethical over the utilitarian, Gandhi argued for a process of unlearning of India from the modern West. This is what his whole notion and idea was. Unlearning of India from the modern West. Thus, he emphasized India's strong ethical positioning, which would accompany a new sense of self-respect, self-reliance, and self-governance. So the background notion is to unlearn all what we have learned from the modern West, and finally look for our self-respect, self-reliance, and self-governance. For Gandhi, the truth was not a matter of cognition, but it was moral experience. So the truth is all about how you experience the journey of life with your inner self. His autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, is surely an indication of all what he's saying, what he is proposing. Therefore, Gandhi's truth had little to do with the modern science and concerned with the experimentation, giving way to argument and argument having recourse of the experiments. So his journey was not based on arguments and logics proposed by modern science. Instead, his truth was experiential and experimental as well as experiential as well as spiritual, very much in the tradition of Socrates and wise thinkers who were prevalent in India. In addition, we can also add that Gandhi's Satya was an absolute reality that we could only partially grasp. It is something much deeper, and one cannot visualize so easily what he was actually advocating and proposing. Overcoming these limitations of our relative knowledge, of more comprehensive grasp of his absolute truth which he talked about, could never be forced by violence. That's how he brings in the concept of non-violence, to understand the absolute truth. So one can never reach closer, even a little bit closer to this absolute truth, without adopting or manifesting what he refers to non-violence. Only ahimsa, which is non-violence, could make this quest of absolute truth viable. Gandhi operationalized this quest in the strategy of satyagraha and truth force. Moreover, he makes no ethical separation between the means and an end. Both must be morally good. For Gandhi, means are equally important as ends, or they both have to be ethical and morally thought about. Gandhian moral revolution therefore took shape of several levels. The whole of Gandhian approach in the history as a manifestation of moral progress of humanity was a very new way of understanding the constituting the elements of common humanity. Therefore, Gandhi's emphasis on solidarity among the human beings showed that he was not seeking individual liberation. He wrote, quote unquote, "I do not believe that an individual may gain spiritually and those who surround him may suffer. It is, according to him, it is impossible for an individual to attain a spiritual elevation or enhancement when when the people around him are suffering. So it has to be a process which is together. Solidarity is the key behind that attainment. I believe in Advaita. I believe in the essential unity of man and, for that matter, of all life, not even humans. It is basically pointing out to the human, to the entire life or existence in this planet. Therefore, I believe that if one man gains spiritually, the whole of the world gains with him. And if one man falls, the whole of the world falls to that extent. So this notion of interconnectedness was proposed and became instrumental in moral revolution, moral transformation, self-enhancement, self-realization, and self-experience. Gandhi's stress on the unity of humankind helps us to understand the moral effort to salvage the Indian self from the colonial rule, and also to redefine a new relationship between the individual and society. So altogether, this particular moral revolution took the whole notion of Gandhian to the level of changing the relationship between the individual and society. Break all the relationship of society and individual, what was practiced by colonial rule, reshape them an internal moral power rather than from the standpoint of rational violence. So that dismantling of the connection that was established by colonial power of individual and society, that had to be transformed and reshaped in a way that the internal moral power becomes the guiding force and transforms the whole society. It was based on such moral empowerment that Gandhi's philosophy was in search of realm of harmony, and that harmony should be undoubtedly and unbiasedly should be between the means and the ends. Gandhi's genuine concern was for the common good, and his moral vision was of social reality was ultimately the reminder of examination of frailty of human social conditions. That is why Gandhi was very firm in his rejection of rigid dichotomy between ends and the means. If that clarity is maintained and that clarity is achieved by the society of any region, any local region, national, international levels, and whichever levels one can think of, if that clarity or dichotomy is unresolved or unfolded between the ends and the means, then there will be no dispute, there will be no conflict, and both of them are equally important and they have to be at the same moral background and values. Gandhi developed his view of means and ends relationship in the form of following the statement. They say means, normally we have heard about this statement, that means are after all means. This is the general perception of the social norm which has been practiced for a long time in the progress of civilization, in the process of civilization, and it is generally stated as a generic term, like means are after all means and one needs to actually achieve ends. He said that means are after all everything. For him, means meant everything. As the means, so the end. Gandhi developed his view of means and end relationship in the form of the following way: the separation of social as the art of interacting and the ethical as the ability to live. It's very important to again put a further notice on that if you try to separate social as the art of interacting, on one side there is a life which is social life and it is based on the art of interaction. On the other side you have ethical moral values, which is the ability to live in the truth with one another. Now, how do you see the connection and linkages between the two? It would be unacceptable for the Gandhian thought to visualize such a separation. Responding to fellow Indians who believed in the use of violence against the British, Gandhi developed his view on means and the end relationship. Gandhi had great attention to the relationship, and he was basically proposing an interconnectedness which was essentially an appreciation of moral role of individual in the society. So how does this interconnectedness appear, and what is the role of empathy between them? So the relationship between means and the end, because he believed that empathetic interconnectedness was essentially the appreciation of moral role of an individual in the society. So truly inclusive and non-violent society should be understood in terms of means and not the end, because only individual actors who had the power to change the history and therefore should be questioned and held responsible when the tyranny destroyed their freedom. I will go through this statement again. So truly inclusive and non-violent society should be understood in terms of means and not the end, because only individual actors had the power to change the history and therefore should be questioned and held responsible when the tyranny destroyed their freedom. So the fact of the matter is, like every individual, the role of the individual, the moral background and moral motivation behind every individual act becomes responsible to make the history. In that sense, Gandhi's view of non-violent citizenship was first and foremost ethical, because it grew from the individual's moral consciousness and not from the political or judicial rules of the system. So what our destiny and what we make the history in our lifetime, it is each individual's role to make the history. Gandhi's spiritual courage was always backed up by the mental and physical capabilities of an autonomous individual who was often lonely because of his attentiveness to the moral disquiet within him. Again, it's a very deeper paragraph to understand that the spiritual courage which he's talking about, which is backed by the mental and physical capabilities. Now, where do we get this mental and physical capabilities? An autonomous individual who is often lonely because of his attentiveness to moral disquiet within him. So all the conflicts related to moral values which are going within an individual and looking for that inner voice, which we all do and which becomes the driving force according to Gandhi. An individual is autonomous but lonely again within an individual, within the person or the system, ecosystem himself. Gandhi's explicit reference to the idea of self-sacrifice and self-suffering as a form of moral courage, one can find a direct hint to the concept of maturity. According to Gandhi, main path by which the individual is inwardly cultivated and mature in a matured manner is coming from maturity in ever greater depth. As such, Gandhi's moral exemplarity and the question of ethical and maturity uh, can be resolved through becoming more and more conscious of its plurality and to discover the criteria of interconnectedness. So that is why there is a step forward, that enhancement and that movement from becoming lonely and finding the interconnectedness and plurality of consciousness. This is what is considered, according to him, as spiritual progress. The first step to Swaraj lies in the individual. Hence, he tries to show that political self-government, that is, self-government for a large number of men and women, is no better than the individual self-government, and therefore it is attained by precisely the same means and that are required for the individual self-government or self-rule. This implied that moral and political connectedness between the personal and public that Gandhi discussed extendedly in his philosophy of Swaraj. In other words, along with his moral revolution, the most important theoretical change which he is visualizing or generated by Gandhian paradigm is political revolution, which we will in the next sessions understand the political revolution. So, how the moral revolution is also connected with the political revolution? This connectivity has to be seen through the interconnectedness which one needs to experience only by the spiritual enhancement or upliftment. Gandhi's vision of Indian self-rule was more than that of democratic India. He had underlined the essence of his political revolution in Hind Swaraj, but his search for Swaraj continued after his return in India in 1915. This pursuit of moral self-realization and political self-governance transformed the whole entire concept of power as perceived by the modern political theory. The basis of Gandhian revolution is the inner voice as well as the interconnectedness, which mainly becomes the guiding source for all generations. The future generations need to recognize the virtue of Gandhian paradigm not only in India but across the globe. They will relive and keep reinventing Gandhi in every era, simply because humanity has no other option but to come closer to the reality and the truth. So this was all about the moral revolution which we discussed in this particular lecture, and later on in the next lecture series we will see that how the progression from moral revolution guided by Gandhian paradigm will move on or will take you towards a political revolution, and how they both kind of revolutions are interconnected. This is on the screen, as you can see, the details of the authors of the book, Ramin Jahanbegloo. And if we talk about the introduction of Ramin Jahanbegloo, he is an Iranian Canadian political philosopher. He is presently the executive director of Mahatma Gandhi Center for Peace Studies and the Vice Dean of the School of Law at General Gobel University, Delhi. He is the author of 32 books in English, French and Persian. Some of the very significant books contribution are The Gandhian Movement, Introduction to Nonviolence, Disobedient Indian, Towards a Gandhian Philosophy of Dissent, The Global Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi, A Nonviolent perspective on peace. This book is co-authored by Dr. Pooja Sharma. This is my introduction. I'm a Associate Professor in Department of Economics, Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi. I am from Miranda House and have completed my Masters from Delhi School of Economics, MPhil, PhD from JNU. And then my area of research is energy security, energy transition, renewable energy, human capital formation, Gandhian perspective on energy transition. So this book give us short brief regarding the book, the contribution, some of the statements and the comments which have come for the book are by Professor Uday Singh, who writes a blurb for this book in this era where inequality, economic and ecological indifferences are widespread. Living in Truth articulates an alternative vision of living and being together. So, Professor Uday Singh writes this blurb who's a professor of political philosophy, Center of City University, New York. Another blurb for this book is by Professor Pulinayak. This book is an extremely valuable contribution to the Gandhian mode of philosophical thinking based on fundamentally on the truth, non-violence and self-examination. Professor Pulinayak is former director and professor of Delhi School of Economics. He has given the comment. So this book was launched as Gandhi Matters series as a book launch in IIC by Professor Ashok Vajpayee ji, and this was done on the launch was done on 27th September 2022 at IIC, and these are the links where you can find the book and place order if you're most welcome to order this from the book. So thank you so much for listening and having a patience on this particular second lecture based on this book, that is Moral Revolution. And in the coming up sessions and coming up lectures, we will be talking about the rest of the dimensions of the paradigm, Gandhian paradigm, that is political revolution, then economic revolution and ecological revolution. We will see how Gandhian paradigm is not only restricted or confined to only moral, spiritual or political framework. It moves and travels a journey towards the ecological and environmental aspects, and it breaks through the fundamentals of the mainstream economic discipline, which is based on models which have been adopted by the present development process and civilization, and how it breaks and unfolds the present challenges of climate change, environment pollution and environmental degradation, the SDGs, and how they are all connected to one particular philosophy, and all the aspects and dimensions can be answered by one single notion of Gandhian thoughts. So thank you for maintaining patience and having patience, and thank you for having me here. Thank you so much.